All right, we're here with Umesh today. How are you doing, my friend? How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you, Suraj. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, the pleasure's all mine. So, listen, for our listeners, Umesh, why don't you just tell us a little bit about, yourself, how you got into sales, and what an average day for you at the moment looks like.
I actually got into sales by choice, right? I by training, I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm also a product of 2008 financial world financial crisis. I was one of the batches in colleges in India where we got placed, but the offers were never sort of honored. So I joined a plant which was into elevator manufacturing, a very very old traditional large business house. And 3 months at the plant as a graduate engineer trainee, as we call it, right? I realized that this is not what I want to do, right? And spoke to the manager, the works manager there, and he also agreed and asked me to apply for the sales role within the same organization. And from there, I think my sales journey started.
Mhm.
Uh, Very diverse sort of sales roles I've taken, right? I started off with selling elevators to the individual customers. Right from there, I moved towards more consultative sort of selling, where I was selling multi-level parking systems, escalators, etc., to large architects. Right, and these are typically very long sales cycles, 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, quick question about that. What I've heard this term before. People have used it on the podcast for consultative selling.
yeah.
So, what exactly does that mean?
So consultative selling is where you align with your customer, right? Understand the need, and you together figure out what is the best way forward,
Okay.
right? It's not a plain vanilla selling where you say, I have a product, why don't you take it, right?
Right.
To give you an example, right, from the same industry, uh, while you're working with let's say if a mall is coming up and you're working with not only your customer who is the builder or the developer, right, you're also working with the architects who are running that project. You are part of that project when the project is in ideation stage, right? You're trying to figure out what dimensions to keep, what sort of machines would be best fitted in that particular space, what sort of requirement they have in terms of number of cars, parking slots those would be required, right? So you're part of the journey in terms of solutioning, from the very first stage, and
Okay.
eventually you drive it to a point where you have a product ready and you then offer it to them.
Right, I see. And is the product being prepared during the consulting process, or is it that you have a set product, but you're just trying to essentially qualify the person and say, okay, you know what, we've had this conversation, we've been on this journey, and I think actually now our product is ideal for you.
So two parts to that. One part could be the customization related to the product that you would do, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
other part would be related to the customer's requirement, right? Again, as an example, if an architect is looking at, let's say, 100 number of parking spots, right? And you have four products, maybe two or three of them can offer that. One cannot, so one that goes out of the window. The two or three products. Now you're also looking at what sort of budget the customer has, what sort of footfall the property is going to see, and what sort of efficiency are you looking at, right? So you try to balance that out and then offer your product, right? So once this has been taken care of, then depending on the space availability and all those things, you also customize your product. So it's a two-way process.
Right. Okay. Got it. Got it. And I had a question about, when you said you came out of college, mechanical engineer, and then, you worked on a site, a plant for a while.
Yeah.
Do you think that for one is a personal question? Would you say that you have the archetypal engineering mentality? Sort of like problem solution, very logically orientated. And secondly, because I'm sure even if you fit that perfectly or don't fit that perfectly, you definitely would have met people in college that fit that. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I studied engineering as well, electrical, and there's a lot of people just very like, okay, here's a problem, here's a solution. Okay, give me the maths, give me the numbers, done. Do you think that mentality or that profile of person has any advantages in sales, or is it difficult to adapt?
Um, it depends, right? I am not your typical engineer, right? But of course, when you're trained to think in a more logical, more structured way, that helps, right? And that is the benefit. Then you're able to bring into any sort of process or any sort of project that you're a part of. Uh, while I understand engineering, right? The other aspect of it is also whether you enjoy doing it or not, right? So while I studied engineering, I was aware of everything that was happening in the plant, right? Uh, Not something that excited me a lot, right? So that's important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is the reason I wanted to move to something which is more dynamic,
Yeah.
right? And it was more techno commercial sort of selling that was involved.
Right. So sales with the with technical elements. So you still have to understand the product, understand
Yeah,
what's going on, but
yeah.
ultimately you're trying to sell it rather than build it.
But keep in mind that this was more mechanical or electrical technology that we are talking about. I
Right.
eventually moved towards the IT, the information technology part
Uh-huh.
eventually, but yes, we'll come to that.
And was that more of a quickly on that? Was that more just of that's where the industry was going as a whole? There's more IT products to sell, hence why there's more opportunities there.
Uh, I came because the speed of selling, right, the speed of interaction was relatively slower. Like I said, the sales cycle typically would be 4 5 years,
Right. Yeah. It's crazy.
and
It's huge.
that's a lot of wait. I wanted to move towards e-commerce, and e-commerce was up and coming at that point of time, right?
Hmm.
So I thought there's a lot more to learn there. Some of these are very traditional industries, right? Elevators, etc. have been there in since early 1900s,
Yeah.
so very very traditional sort of industry, and so is the culture. So I wanted to do something that's more dynamic, a lot more avenues to learn and experiment, and that's when I decided to move.
Nice. Nice. So the logic behind asking the question about engineering mentality in sales, because a lot of our listeners are founders, some of them solo founders, like technical solo founders. And I was just made a
Sure.
post yesterday on LinkedIn about this, because when you got someone that can code or that can build a product, that's a very very different skill set to selling a product.
Yeah,
So for that kind of person who they're very technically astute, they're able to build something, and then it's about, okay, getting in the mentality now to sell it, because a lot of times engineers have this thing of like, oh, not all the feature set is not complete, I can't sell it
yeah,
yet, it needs to
yeah.
be done. Whereas actually, in
It's
entrepreneurship
more
startups,
iterative.
yeah, in sellings, you're better off going to the customer, taking the consultative approach that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So would you have any advice, any tips, or any kind of insights for someone in that situation?
So my advice would be that it doesn't work in the case where you think you have a product, but the market could maybe is not right for it, right? Or the market is not ready for it, or it is not what is solving a customer's pain point, right? Uh, like you said, it's always better to go in a more stepwise manner, right? To build something, test it out, see if it works, doesn't work, get some feedback from the customers, and then build on top of it, right? You can always build features and functionalities, right? But do your your proof of concept first.
Yeah.
And as a founder, right? My experience has been that you are the best salesperson itself, right? You understand uh, before any other sales guy that you will ever hire, right? What value your product adds, right?
Yeah.
If you come from a product sort of expertise, it helps you build exactly what the customer is asking for. But the first sort of, and again, the sales also evolves, right? Selling your product to early adopters, maybe your 4 or 5 people who you would have connects with, is very different from an enterprise sales or even an SME sales, right? The skill set, the process, all these things sort of start changing.
Right. Okay.
So it's important that you are a part of your first sort of uh, sale that you make for your product, so that
Yeah.
you understand what the customers are asking for and whether you're on the right track or not.
Yeah. And somebody I spoke to recently had mentioned as well, it's also very reassuring to people that you hire,
Yeah,
salespeople that you hire,
yeah,
because nobody wants to sell a product that has no proof that it can even be sold,
yeah,
as
absolutely.
counterintuitive as it is, right?
Yeah. And just to add to that, right? In one of the companies that I worked with,
Hmm.
uh, the founder itself was not very good with selling. And the best part was that the person knew about it, right?
Okay.
And then you get the right people in the team very early on who can go and sell it to customer. Because at times, what could also happen is the customer gives you some feedback and you just dismiss it, saying that you don't know what you're talking about. This is my product, I know about it better.
Yeah.
right? Now that's not which is going to help you win customers, right? And that's also not going to help you build your product further. So you need somebody who understands the customer side well. Great, nothing like it if you can do it yourself, or you should have somebody who can give you that echo chamber, to do your first round of testing.
And to take that mentality and extrapolate to it, I would say it's perfectly summarized in the difference between a business person and an artist.
Yeah,
Are you someone trying to create a product for the market, or are you an artist trying to create something that you think is cool?
yeah, absolutely.
Because it's all well and good having 25, 50 features, but if no one's going to use them, what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned there that you said as a founder. So have you ever had any experience as a founder yourself, or purely been in
Uh,
sales?
I've been in sales except for the first 3 months where I was, posted at a plant.
Yeah,
But I've been part of companies where I was one of the, first few
nice.
members, first few, I mean, members of the founding team, if I
Yeah,
can say so.
okay.
So I've seen the whole startup sales very close.
Okay, so in those environments, those smaller teams, very fast moving environments, how would you go about building a relationship with a potential client, from the early stages, and then creating that sort of consultative approach where you can get information about improving the product? Like, what's the best way to create that relationship? And then let's start with that, and then we can kind of go through the pipeline via our conversation.
Right. So it depends on the product or the problem that you're solving, right? The product that you're making or the problem that you're trying to solve, right? And depending on that, the use, the approach would vary, right? Uh, for example, I was part of a fintech which was trying to work with the HR community and build something which is a financial literacy plus financial well-being tool for their employees. Right now, in that case, the approach is, you try to reach out to customers, the connects, etc. Because then you're targeting large enterprises. You're not targeting very small companies. So you reach out to your network first. If you have people who you can trust or people who can trust you, you start from there, right? Because they're also going to be people who are going to give you more blunt feedback, whether it
Mhm.
works or it doesn't work, right? uh, and there from there, then you can build it up. In case you're building something which is maybe for very small, you know uh, medium enterprises, small enterprises, small scale businesses, then you need to be in front of your customers, talk to them, figure out, and you might want to do a few, activities, promotional activities to get them on board and take their feedback, and then take that approach. Once you have a few use cases, then you can make case studies out of it and then reach out to potential buyers. But you start small. You start with a smaller geography. Start with a small sort of team, and set up very simple processes. Identify your customers. Make a list of customers in that geography. Figure out what their immediate pain points are, which you are going to solve, and approach them with a solution.
Right. And you mentioned there like promotional activities, so sort of incentives to get, work with the potential customers, right? To get information. So
Yeah, yeah.
what kind of promotional activities would those be? Like what do those look like? Like,
At the very minimum, right, you can give your product for free for the early adopters, right? Or you can give them a more freemium sort of a product, right, where for certain features, and a premium product for free, which they can use and give them feedback. And you can always, because I'm also not somebody who believes that you should give something valuable for free, right? Because then you are diminishing the value of the product that you're building.
yeah.
So you can put some timelines around it and do it, or you can do your regular conventional marketing sort of activities where you give them goodies, get them on board, and then start from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's very much in line with a guy I spoke to many years ago. Well, actually, it was earlier this year, but I met him many years ago. He founded a business in London, and then ended up getting acquired just last year. and he'd taken it to like Series C, D stage. And I was asking him, how did you get your first customers? And he said, look, the first main thing is just get that one customer who's somewhat known in the industry and
Yeah.
tell them, look, if you can use this and it's actually useful, only if it's useful, then can we use your testimony with other
Yeah.
people? And we will
Yeah.
always give it to you at below 50% or 25% of the market rate. No matter how big we get, you'll always have it for this price.
Absolutely.
So he was talking about, just having that sign off by the customer saying that, yeah, this was good. Just that, that one quotable sentence that you see on
Yeah.
websites, right? And then you see a logo like Coca-Cola. They said this, and it's like most people will see that and think, okay, no need to do any more due diligence.
Yeah. And also, one thing that you need to keep in mind is you need to identify the right customers. For example, if there are 10 such names right in the list, which you could possibly use for reference, right? You would want to target somebody who is more open to, sort of experimenting uh, and exploring new products, and you have a good connect with. And there you can go and pitch. It's easier that way from a selling point of view.
And is that something to do with the type of customer in the sense of the industry they're in or where they operate, or is it to do with the type of personality of the person in the company?
Uh, I think largely the latter, because there are always those people who want to be ahead of everyone else. They're
Yeah.
more open to explore and experiment, right?
Yeah.
And those people then become your early adopters. Even in my current role, right? If we come out with a new product, uh, we go to companies where we understand that the customer wants to stay ahead in the race, right? And
Mm.
for that, they would not hesitate from experimenting or failing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think that's one of the beautiful things about sales as well, because it's like, you might meet on paper two people that are identical, right? So like, I've noticed this here in India itself, because I've been trying to get venture capitalists from India to come on the podcast and speak,
yeah,
and we're talking
yeah,
about partners, directors at bigger firms. So
yeah,
not exactly they have so much inbound from startups and stuff that it's harder to get a hold of them, right?
yeah,
And sometimes you meet somebody who's like, very stern, very kind of like the LinkedIn picture is the tied 3-piece suit, like looking really serious,
yeah,
and they're partnered at one VC firm, and then you go to another VC firm. The guy's there, scruffy beard, glasses, t-shirt, smiling, and it's
yeah,
like, which one do you think would be more open in its sense of profiling, right? I could be wrong,
yeah.
of course, it could be wrong, but it's like the same person from the exact same industry, just a different company, could have an immensely different personality and open so many more doors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one thing, I guess, then when you're reaching out to these people, when you're trying to create these relationships, naturally there's a lot of rejection involved. There's a lot of,
Yeah.
people putting the phone down, no response to emails. And I've heard a lot of talk about touch points. How many touch points should you have with the prospect before you kind of get into the conversation and they're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give this person the time of day. So, in your kind of playbook, how many touch points do you usually go for when you're trying to get warm up a lead and you're trying to get in these conversations? And when do you call it quits? When do you kind of walk away from the situation, say, all right, you know what, tried, it's not happening, I'll leave it there?
So, okay, so before I get to the exact answer to this, right, there is a question which is often asked, which is, whether sales is a science or is it an art, right? And I believe it's a combination of the two, right? Now, a rejection is a rejection if you don't take away anything from it, right?
Mhm.
But I believe somebody who might not be a good fit for your product right now, or they don't see that need right now, right? You still have had a chance to leave an imprint on them, right?
Yeah.
If not now, in future they can always come back and ask you for a solution. I still have people calling me with from my roles which I was a part of 4 years, 5 years back, because somewhere I had a conversation with them and they saved my number and they felt that I could add value to what they were doing, right? So that's one. Second part is, of course, on a day-to-day basis, of course, you have to look at your numbers, right? Because in today's world, the data doesn't lie, right?
Yeah.
So uh, you have to figure out when you are a spammer versus a solution sort of provider, right? And if and after two or three interactions, if I'm not getting a response, right, I generally ask the customer whether it's the right time or not, right? Or if they're not, if they could have other priorities, right? So I always ask them if this is not the right time, should I get back to them at a later stage, or
Yeah.
I'll give them the option of calling it back,
Yeah.
because for most of the products today, the market is very very large, right? It's not one customer is not going to make or break it, right?
Yeah.
And you can always work on the other aspect that you said, which is having more number of touch points, right? And again, depends on the industry. For example, I was part of the logistics industry in India before this, right? There, most of the people would come with very specific needs, right? Uh, Either they will take you or they will take someone else, but they will take something, right?
Hmm.
That's very different from other industries where you're trying to create a need,
Right.
right? So then the approach sort of differs.
Arguably, the latter is a lot harder, no,
Of course,
to create a
yeah,
demand.
yeah. Because then you have a separate playbook for that, right? You are trying to see who would early adopters be, whether your product is the right fit or not. If yes, then what is the outcome? Can it be sort of if you can make it more tangible, so that the same can be then used as a use case for other customers,
Yeah.
and and then you get other customers.
Yeah. Would you say that's a key difference between, a startup trying to sell and an enterprise trying to sell?
Yes.
I guess,
There are other differences as well in terms of maybe the complexity of the sales or the sales cycle, or the number of touch points that you would need, right? Or
yeah,
even from a legal sort of perspective, the requirements or the engagement that you would need with your legal team, right? That could
yeah,
be there, but largely yes.
right. Makes sense. And I guess also like the amount of decision makers you need to go through, right?
Yeah,
When you're doing those bigger sales, they're much more complex. There's multiple departments involved with making the decision. So you need to have, people in the finance department to sign off on the budget, people
yeah,
maybe in the operations department to say, yeah, this is really useful. The
yeah,
management team CEO to say, okay, yeah, signed off, all good.
yeah.
We're,
So, very rightly said, the product that I currently sell, right? You would need somebody who's going to use your product, right? It could be, I work in the fashion retail industry right now, right? And there you need people who are merchandisers to sort of, like your product, ensure that and they need to be sure that it's a product that is very easy to use, it makes their life easy,
yeah,
right? So they are going to be a business users, and at the same time, you would have, let's say, somebody from the finance, the CFO, or somebody who would look at the ROI of using the product. The product can be great, it could be very useful, right? But if it doesn't justify the ROI of investing in that particular product, he's not going to say yes to it,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then you need somebody from the, at the very top who would look at the product from a more strategic point of view, right? And see whether it is aligned with the direction that they want to take.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a really, really important point you made. Like implicitly in what you said there, it's like think about what's important to the person you're speaking to. Yes, the company has a pain point. Yes, your problem might solve it. So this is kind of like the next step of that. You got a problem, you solve the problem. But when you're having an individual conversation, tailor it to the person that you're speaking to, because the CEO cares about ROI. The
Yeah,
strategic department cares about where the company's going 5, 10 years and what products they're using and how it combines to make the vision. And the end user is the one that you want to sell the features to and sell the benefits of. Yeah, this is going to save you time. You don't have to, send this email and do that, or you don't have, whatever the product is doing, right?
right.
I think
I've
that's a really good point.
Absolutely. When I was part of the logistics industry, you would be able to sell it to your customer, let's say the head of logistics, right? And you get a sign off from the CFO as well, right? But if the person who is actually going to, operate on the ground
Hmm.
is not very happy or is not very in favor of you, right? He's never going to adopt to it,
Yeah,
right? And then all it creates is a lot of noise saying that this has not happened, that has not happened, this is not good, that report is not good. And sometimes those issues are really, really trivial, right?
yeah,
Uh, it cannot be a success, So
Hmm.
you need to ensure that all the stakeholders that you are selling to, right? You're not selling it to one particular individual, right? You're selling it to an enterprise with different sort of stakeholders are there. For startups, is different, right? You talk to the co-founder, they like your product, they initially will ask the team to try it out, and the element of trying it out is way higher when you're working with startup, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because you want to demo it to them, you want to get their feedback and all that kind of stuff. Unless, of course, you have your value proposition, your go-to-market strategies there, and then you're just kind
Yeah,
of rinsing and repeating the process.
yeah. So I'm talking about the first initial sort of the first few sales that you do.
Yeah, getting the product market fit, right? Getting
Yeah,
the product
yeah.
market fit at that point. So if we go to the next step, right? So you got now a product solving a problem,
Hmm.
and you're at that stage, product market fit achieved. So at this point, what's the best way to create a solid sales funnel into the pipeline? Getting leads, and then when you have the leads, qualifying them and getting them onto demo calls, and then kind of closing those calls. So how would you go about if I said to you, hey Umesh, look, I got a 1.5 year project for you. Here's this startup. This is the product. Here's their 3 customers already. Pilots done. Trials done. A little bit of ARR already in the bag.
All right.
Now we need your help to actually streamline and create a process around this so that they can scale it in the future. How would you go
All right.
about that?
So, how I would go about it is I look at the 3 companies which are already there who are working with us. First step would be to talk to them and ask them why they are using our product, right? Of course, you have sold it to them, you have your own reasons, but sometimes, important to understand why they are using your product, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you a lot of insight.
Hmm.
From here, I would take a two-pronged approach, right? One, you try to understand the industry, the segment that these 3 companies are in, right? And then try to acquire more customers in the same industry, right? And the other thing is then you also look at industries which are similar to this, and then see if there is a product market fit in those industries as well, right? Because for example, if I've already sold something to, let's say, fashion, this thing, and where there's a certain seasonality, there's a certain customer preference, etc. uh, is that something that can be applicable for, let's say, furniture,
Right.
right? So um, what I would do is, then, if let's say the first 3 customers are, let's say, fashion retailers, right, I would go out and target more first customer from the same industry. It always helps to have strong testimonials, references coming from your existing customers, and also create those case studies, which then you can showcase to your potential buyers, right?
Yeah.
That is in the same industry. The other part is the expansion to other sort of industries, and trying to figure out, the product market fit in those, right? So I would spend some time in that and figure out what other industries would be the right buyers for the product in the current state.
Hmm. Hmm. So you got all that. So you've done okay. So this is an interesting point. The first thing you do essentially is the
Yeah.
research into how we can expand it. So now you got those things, and it's like in terms of day-to-day operations, what's the best way to kind of structure this entire process, right? Because it's a lot. There's a lot of things going on with sales. That's what I've learned personally in the last
Yeah.
couple of weeks is that you're reaching out to dozens and dozens of people. All of them are at different stages. Some of them are like not interested. Some of them don't reply. Some of them are like, yeah, that's cool, but they're not really interested. Some of them are like, oh well, what about X, Y, and Z? Probably the ones that give you objections are the most likely ones to take forward because they're actually
Yeah.
considering it. So
Yeah.
how would you manage all these things? I know, of course, people use CRMs, right? CRMs very popular tool, but
Yeah.
like, how does one go about managing this psychologically and also then actually recording everything? Because I've also heard this. The last conversation I had was all about data-driven sales. Every interaction you have, make sure you record it. So
Yeah.
if something works, you can see why it's working.
Uh, that's a very valid point, right? And that's the way to go about this, right? If you don't capture your data, that's going to no, it's not going to add any value to it. Like I initially said, even a rejection, you go away taking something from that discussion, right?
Yeah.
So what I typically prefer is a very get a CRM. It need not be the best one out there in the market, but something that your team will adapt to, right? And considering that we are talking about the early stages, something which can help you record your conversations, identify different customers in different stages of sales cycle, right?
Hmm.
And do the basic sort of analysis on them, right? So one, it helps you on getting the insights and understanding where your funnel is leaking, right? And you know, whether it's a product issue, whether it's a sales issue, whether it's a some other issue that you should go and address. But it does help you to streamline those use cases, right? And the other thing is, then it also gives you a lot of sort of product feedback, which you can take back to your product team and tell them that, this is what the customer is demanding.
Yeah.
And the third aspect of it is, when you're building a sales team, you want everybody to be highly, highly efficient, at least in the early stages, right? You don't want even a single sales guy, if you're a sales team of five and if one doesn't perform, you cannot achieve more than 80% efficiency anyways,
Yeah.
right? So uh, then what you need to do is to have a very strong handle on, what your sales team is doing, and ensure that you're enabling and empowering them to achieve, what they're set out for.
Okay. And that process, that's the most interesting thing there, I think, because enabling and empowering. So what would that look like? A small sales team. I understand one thing is probably having the tools, having the processes in place. Like, okay, look, have the call, then immediately document the call here.
Yeah,
If the call moves to a demo, move it forward in the thing. So then they have a strong grasp of where everything is and what they need to do. But
yeah.
like, could you give me an example of what an average day for one of these hires would look like? Like what you would
Right. So
describe to them?
see, the use case that we are considering is, early stage company, right? There you do not have the advantage of having a separate SDR team and a negotiation, a separate team for closing the deal, and pre-sales team. All those things are not available, right?
Yeah.
It's typically a couple of folks who are doing the sales lead generation. They are doing the pre-sales aspect. They are giving the demos by themselves. One, these guys need to be very strong technical, right? Depending on what your product is, right?
Hmm.
Um, and they have to be technologically very advanced, right? There are a lot of tools available in the market nowadays which can help you be more productive,
Yeah.
and of course CRM does help. A typical day for any of these guys, right, would be to understand where they are, right? Set out at the beginning of the day, what needs to be done, and that's an activity I typically take a very short, medium, and long term view, right? So at the end of the 6 months, what do I want to do, right? Where I want to be. For that, what is it that I need? What's the checkpoint or the milestone after a quarter, right? What does that mean if after a month, right?
Yeah.
And then bringing it to a granular level at a daily level, right?
Yeah.
What is it
Yeah.
that I need to do today, so that I'm the most productive version of myself, and also review it every day, right? Sales is a lot more about discipline, right? Doing something, whatever works, just follow that, right? Be more iterative, and whatever doesn't work, then quickly leave it from your plate.
Yeah. I can relate to that because it's something that it's because you're dealing with people and because you're kind of vested in the process of speaking to someone, like whether it's methodical or not. It's like when you speak to somebody and they say, no, stop calling me this, I don't want to buy this crap, leave me alone. It's gonna hurt to a certain degree,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's like bringing that autopilot process to what you're doing. It's like, right, sit down. Like
yeah,
for me, it's been recently been reaching out to people to join the show, right? I might reach out to 30 people and 4 or 5 respond. And that might happen in 2 days. Whereas there could be 2 weeks where nothing's happening and I'm kind of like, oh, what the heck's going on? But it's like having that process, sitting down, having a little to-do list. All right, make n number of direct messages, n number of emails, n number of calls. All right, boom,
yeah,
boom, boom. Put it in, and choosing that number to be like an intelligent number. I think it's like knowing your own limitations. If I try and if I say 20 calls in a day or 25 calls in a day, and I know that usually I get burnt out by the eighth call or the ninth call, well, 25 is completely
yeah,
unreasonable.
yeah. And it's not going to help motivate you. At the end of the day, you would feel like nothing is working out. And
Yeah,
if you have to kind of do it, then it has to be more something to look forward to, right?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. What I like, if that situation, the advice to anyone listening to this would be like, have segment your day in ways that you know will energize you.
yeah,
So how just this example I just gave, instead of 25 calls, if I'm getting burnt out by 10 calls, I would say do 3, then look back on the previous day's calls or those calls, introspect what went well, what didn't, modify the approach, so sort of intellectualize it. If
yeah,
because I personally enjoy doing that. I like analyzing things, so
yeah,
I would
yeah.
sit there, analyze what's going on, and I would get some satisfaction that that's interesting, or yeah, maybe I should try this. Update your approach, do another 3 calls, repeat the process, do another 3, and then work on something else.
Right. Also, adding to what you said, right? It's important to segment your day, right? If you have to be productive, one thing that I very often use is the urgent important matrix, right? And typically, what I've seen in my past experiences, most of the time, the urgent sort of things, right, take away your time from important things, right?
Mm,
And then it leads to burnout, right? You end up saying that, I did so much work today, but, you know, nothing is going to help me,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's important to segment the day, right? It's important to uh, divide it in ways so that, you can spend the first half. And the customer, for example, is not available in, in doing, writing emails, etc., right? You can keep a part of the day when you think the customer is going to be most active, right? That time you can use for reaching out to the new leads.
hmm,
Then you also have to talk to your existing sort of customers, or people who said they will come back to you, right? And keep that time for follow up, right?
yeah,
And a very important, like, as it's not urgent but it's very important, is to maintain the sales, the CRM hygiene,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So let's not forget that one.
That's interesting because I spoke with a guy who was talking about this thing called the Moscow approach.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
No.
So it's basically this. I mean, I only briefly looked at it, but what I understood, it's like, imagine you have a graph, just a chart,
Yeah.
and the x-axis is the importance of a task, and the y-axis is the urgency of the
It's
task.
the same thing. It's the same thing. I think it's
Exactly.
called the Eisenhower matrix.
Right. Okay.
Uh, yeah, and essentially what you're trying to do is to divide all the, most of the people will have a to-dos, right? And
Yeah.
personally also, uh, at my home, I've seen that to-dos don't work. They only
Okay.
stress you out,
They
right?
do. Yeah.
It's important to block time. Something needs to be done. Of course, it needs to be done, right? But when do you want to do it? All of us are super busy, especially if you're in sales, right? You have to call up customers, and when you call a customer, he says, call me after 5 minutes. That itself is a task, right?
Yeah.
So how do you then ensure that you are doing whatever needs to be done, right? And a to-do list only sort of stresses you out.
Hmm.
This matrix also gives you a perspective on what needs to be done today,
Yeah.
right? And what is it that you can either delegate, or you can, keep it for tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and there, I think, for example, 20% of my time I keep for anything which is important, right?
Yeah.
Irrespective of, how much urgent stuff do I have, right? Or if it means that you stay back and finish off the important, things, right? Then you do that, right?
Hmm.
Those things cannot wait. But all the other aspects, then you can prioritize accordingly, right? There are various tools nowadays available, right? And for example, a simple tool as calendar is very, very useful, right?
What's
You
it called?
block
What's it
some
called?
time, the Google Calendar or any calendar
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you use, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anything that you want to do, you put in a calendar saying that, I need to call, right? For example, there's a customer that I'm chasing, right? And I need to do a demo for the complete team, right?
Hmm.
And he said, let's connect after 17. So it goes on to my calendar, 17, check with this guy
Yeah.
what, the plan is going to look like. And if I don't mention it anywhere, either, if I don't capture it on CRM, or if I don't use it in calendar, then I'm going to surely miss it,
Yeah. You're gonna
right?
forget for sure.
Now, uh, for early stage startups, right, you might not have all the fancy CRMs, right? But calendar comes free,
Yeah.
right? And it's one of the most powerful tools.
Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, our team calendar for the startup blueprint is filled with just random things. Some of them are mine, some of them are my co-founders. And for a while he was even using it for his exercise routine. So I was like,
Yeah,
dude,
of course.
just get a different email and you use that one for this. I don't need to see how many laps you're gonna do today.
But I think, see, it's not only from a professional point of view, it's also at a personal level. I use calendar very extensively,
Yeah,
like your co-founder.
absolutely.
And it it keeps you in, in a more disciplined route.
Yeah. In fact, you're right. And it's just making me think now because this is probably the second or third conversation I've had where this has come up, where, how you manage your time is critical in sales, absolutely critical.
Yeah,
I've worked, quite a bit as a software developer, and it's nowhere near as talked about or emphasized, right? In, in,
yeah,
in that in that world, you have a ticketing system where you're
yeah,
going to work on one ticket per day or in that week, and that's the main focus, and this sort of agile methodology of like these are the
yeah,
things we're going to focus on this week that are tailored to this feature, whatever. But in sales, it's like the day-to-day management of how you spend your time, like,
yeah,
is absolutely critical to success. And there's so many parallels with just general productivity or general time management of life, right? It's a very general skill, but
yeah,
it's really, I'm seeing that's really critical in this industry because it's making me think. It's so familiar to me because in college, I used to have a couple of different projects I was working on at any given time. I have my college at the time. I was doing a few things outside of college. A few creative pursuits, that kind of thing. And I wanted to make sure all three or four of those things were moving forward adjacently and nothing was going to fall behind. So I would just
yeah,
have a simple sticky note. And what I would do is I would choose now I'm realizing that the task that had the highest importance and the highest urgency for each of those things. And I
yeah,
would order the to-do list based on that. So the ones that's most important and most urgent, I would have them first. The
yeah,
one that's least urgent, but maybe it's important, I'd have it last. But the one that
yeah,
takes the most time, I'd also try to keep it in the first half of the day. So I don't want to do that at night because I'm going to be
yeah,
tired. So,
yeah,
like for example, if you need to work on a proposal for a demo and it's like a super important client, you don't want to do that at 6 p.m.
yeah.
because
Of course, you want to take that as the first thing in a day, right?
absolutely. But it's like this now I'm like, oh wow. So I've been employing all these techniques that you would use day to day in sales in my own life. But it's so interesting that there's that strong parallel.
Yeah. So I think when you do with modern tools which are available, right, you're more disciplined with that, right?
Yeah.
Of course, all of us use these, tools to very different extent. But as a sales guy, right, you need to ensure that you're using them to the best of their capabilities, right? One thing that I believe, in sales, there's a lot of noise. Customers will call you, product will call you, manager will call you, team members will call you. Everybody wants, your time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of noise which is generated,
Hmm.
right? Now, how do you then declutter all of that and work on what is important, right? That defines, uh, productivity in general and more specifically to sales guys, right? The difference between a superstar sales guy and somebody who's not doing well, right, is this, right? Somebody who is a superstar, of course, assuming that they have, equally good selling skills, right? But how you manage your work, right, defines the superstar from the one who is not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen guys who are doing something which is neither important nor urgent, right?
Mm.
But because they're able to close it, right? There's also that element where it's the easier things to take off a checklist, right?
Yeah.
And you are just busy with that, and that takes away all your time. And then
Hmm.
eventually you feel burned out because you've not achieved anything.
Yeah.
So to block some, blocking time to achieve, to address the important and the urgent aspects, right? Super urgent, super important, gives you a lot of free time. Also, it gives you more freedom to then experiment with the rest of the time that you have.
So true. So
Yeah,
true. And I think has something I want to mention there. It's just slipped my mind now. Yeah, it's like the compulsion of to-do lists as well. There's a
yeah,
compulsive element there because when you have this to-do list, like my last guest was telling me that sometimes you just add a thing to do just because you could tick it off and you can feel like, oh, look at this. Like you might have, 10 things on your to-do list, only 2 of them are actually important. 8 of
Yeah.
them are just some bullshit that you put there to get things done. And at the end of the day, you have 8 things done. You feel like, yeah, look at me, I did 80% of this stuff today. But
Yeah.
all you did was crap. You didn't do the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
important things.
Absolutely.
Skip them.
And look, I'm not a big fan of to-do lists.
Yeah.
Right? A
Yeah.
lot of people use it, but I personally have seen that unless you have an action plan, right, and it need not be a very elaborate plan, it's just blocking some time on when you want to address a particular thing,
Yeah.
right? You can cluster them, you can group them, but if you don't have them on your calendar, if you don't know when you're going to do it, right? I've seen people who worry about, let's say taking a vacation abroad, right?
Yeah.
It's there in the to-do list, right? And it stays in the to-do list and they're always stressed about it,
Yeah.
right? It's always good to have a plan. In 6 months I have to do this. Let me put it this way, and then your mind, how we are programmed, right? You start automatically planning backwards, right? If I want to take a vacation, let's say in December, then by when I should inform my team, what are the other aspects that I need to take care of, right?
Yeah.
From a money point of view, from leaves point of view, from your family, other commitments that you have, professional, personal, right? Then you start planning in that direction. If it is there in the to-do list, doesn't work. At least doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I guess what you're saying is that the to-do list is too one-dimensional. What you want to do
Yeah.
is have this to-do list, but because everyone's going to have things they need to do, but have it span across time in the sense of this one task. How can I break it down and create a process around, like a process list? All right. So for me to go on holiday, this is the process that I need to implement. For me to get this client, this is the process I need to implement.
Right.
For whatever, anything you could possibly want in life, there's a process to doing it. And it's like back to what you said earlier. It's like, where do you want to be in 6 months? Okay.
Right.
Where do I need to be in the end of 3 months? Where do I need to be at the end of this month? Okay, what do I need to do today to get there?
Right. I think one of the things that I've seen personally with people who are successful, right, and more content, right, is they know what can be done and what cannot be done. Right now, I meet a lot of people who want to read book, who want to travel, who want to exercise, uh, who wants to have a social life, who wants to ensure that they're with friends and families. They want to pursue all their other sort of hobbies, right? But we all have just 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Then this sort of list, right? Or and then putting things on a calendar, or using any other tool, right? When you're able to visualize when you are going to do it, that sort of gives you a perspective.
Yeah.
If something is not coming there, that means it's neither important nor urgent, right?
Yeah.
So, makes your life less stressful.
Absolutely. And I think it focuses your mind then when you have these things defined clearly. It focuses your mind on what you should focus time on. And
Right.
it also draws your attention. For me, I do use to-do lists, but more just I keep them really simple, like maximum 5 things. And they're all like high priority things that I mentioned, right?
Right.
But
Right.
like, if I'm sitting there and I've got lost in something, I've looked up something interesting online, and I'm just reading about it, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like I like reading about history, so I'll do that, and get lost in it for 2-3 hours, and then you come back and look at the list, and it's like, oh shit, I haven't done X, Y, and Z,
Right.
and it refocuses your mind. Whereas when you don't have that, you're like, you know what, it's fine, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's all good. Whereas the list, or just having it defined. Forget about the list. Just having it defined somewhere. It's like, no, but I need to do that to get to that place, and
Right.
I want to get to that place.
Right.
So it's almost like somebody keeping you accountable. It's almost like you take a version of yourself, you put it into words elsewhere, and that version of yourself is like an angel and a devil that's on your shoulder saying, look, you want to be there, right? You want to close the client, get to work, go do that, and relax.
Like your co-founder saying, I need to do these many laps today, right?
Yeah.
So it's a constant reminder that you need to do something.
It's like somebody telling you, right? Because we don't have that anymore. People, once you leave school, once you leave college, once you live by yourself, no more teachers, professors, parents to tell you like, yo, do this, do that. So someone else has to keep you accountable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's poetic. Everyone hates being told what to do when they're younger, and then they start telling themselves what to do in a reminder as they're older.
Yeah. I think that's true for a lot more things as well.
Oh, absolutely. But listen, Umesh, I think we're coming close to the end of the episode. Really, really enjoyed this. I felt it was really nice, exploratory conversation back and forth. I hope you did as well.
I did. Very, very interesting talking to you, and um, would love to, hear more of your podcast. So, very recently, that I came across your podcast. Very, very interesting people coming in
Yeah,
from probably all different walks of life. So, um, there's something that I've added to my calendar now, right? So,
awesome.
what I do is I listen to podcasts when I go out for a run, right? And it's
Okay,
there on my calendar. 6 o'clock morning, go for a run or
yeah,
do workout, right? And that's when
nice.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, right?
Brilliant.
And yours is the latest addition to that.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor to be on the calendar. And one thing I noticed actually is because we spoke first, I think 3-4 weeks ago in
Yep.
May, and I had mentioned, would you like to come on the podcast, etc. And then you were like, hey, Suraj, I'm a little bit busy. How about 12th to 16th week? So I was like, okay, no
Yeah.
problem. And then, I had forgot to put it to make a reminder, but then you had messaged me just 3 weeks later, like out of the blue, and I was like, how did that's impressive. How did he remember? Because I had forgotten. So I bet that was on the calendar as well.
I put everything on the calendar, any follow up, any monthly budgeting, anything, every, personal, professional, anything that I want to do. I
Nice.
put it in the calendar. It's an easy reminder that you need to do.
Yeah.
Even if you want to do something that even that goes on sort of, you have to
Yeah.
it has to be on the calendar.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. And it becomes something that just is a part of your day then, right? You just open it. It's like, oh, this
Like
XYZ.
I said, right, I was reading somewhere that, and I think it was more in context of a lot of these successful large and entrepreneurs, right? They don't worry about what to wear, right? We do a lot of
Yeah.
decision making every day. And I think it's there in one of the TED Talks, I think, which is about decision making fatigue,
Mm.
right? So how do you keep your mind free from all these things? Remembering when to do something, right? You have easy tools, put it there, forget about it. You know when it comes, right? All
Yeah.
you need to be smart about is ensuring that you put it rightly. If something needs to be done, let's say, and needs a 3 days prep time, right? Then you put 3 days uh, earlier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it takes away a lot of those repetitive sort of tasks away from you, and then you can focus more on what is the task at hand. You can give it 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more than just prioritization as you're kind of hinting at here.
Yeah,
It's like mental exportation. You're taking
yeah,
the brain power required and putting it somewhere else so then you don't have to use that anymore.
absolutely, yes.
It's so true. There's a book that I read a while ago. It's by an author called Kelly McGonigal.
Okay,
It's called The Willpower Instinct.
okay,
Really good book. It's a bit old now. I mean, I've read it back 2013, I think, but really good. And she was talking about this thing, like your brain being a muscle. So the more you push yourself to do certain things, the more tired you're going to get.
yeah,
And having lists, having all. She mentions a bunch of stuff. I've forgotten now because it was about 10 years ago that I read it. But she talks about this stuff. And one thing I do remember because it was the first chapter was that 5 minutes of meditation has been shown to increase your willpower instinct. So to be able
yeah,
to, so we're talking about having you know wearing down of the mind, the mind wearing down to make less decisions. One easy kind of hack to have more energy to make decisions is just 5 minutes of meditation, or as
yeah,
you mentioned earlier, like a run, working out. Just
yeah.
kind of
For
puts.
me, run works.
Yeah, runs are great, man. What do you do like long distance, short distance? What's your kind of distances?
So I try to cover a certain distance in a month, right? And I've seen that I've become more and more regular about it.
Nice.
So now then again, I break it down to at a weekly level.
Of
Monday I
course.
do, let's say,
Of course.
let's say a 5K on Monday. I do a 10K on
Nice.
Wednesday, and then I typically go to 15-20K on a Saturday, right?
You're you're
So
you're based in Bangalore, right?
that's correct.
Dude, I'm not sure how you guys run in the Indian temperature. I know Bangalore is one of the best temperatures in India, but
Yeah.
because I'm based in Bangalore at the moment as well, right?
Oh,
And
which part?
JP Nagar.
We should catch up for a coffee, man.
Yeah, let's
We
let's
should
do
have been
that.
doing this in person.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
based in JP Nagar as well.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah,
Oh, listen. I'll tell you what. I want to end the podcast episode now. We can chat. We can chat just offline. But
sure.
it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I'll see you soon.
Same here. Thank you so much, Suraj.